Let's get started. So this class is about dual appointments for pharmacy residents. These dual appointments are intermittent. So welcome to our intermittent class for pharmacy residents. This is being presented by our VISN HRD team. My name is Omayra Bedward and my colleague Lisette Lima have put this training together for you. We would like to go over some housekeeping items, and it's this your participation in this training gives us the permission to record it, and it's your consent. This training is foundational, and if you have had experience with doing intermittent appointments for pharmacy residents as a dual appointment, you're going to find this class very basic. Very important. If you're having problems with the chat or with the presentation, just stand by and our team will let you know what to do next. The last thing is, if you have questions, we ask you that you hold them towards the end. If I present something that you may have a different perspective on it, I ask you to please just send that to me separately. If I'm incorrect in something, then we'll definitely go ahead and correct it. So let's get started. Here we go. It's very important that we give this disclaimer. This training is, this PowerPoint presentation is created solely for the purpose of providing training to our VISN HR specialists. Please note that our training course are not intended to be a substitute for official VA guidance references or a substitute for local policy for your section. Rather, this material has been developed as a supplement to any policy or guidance developed on this topic. This presentation should not be used in lieu of policy or guidance or regulation or statute or any your section's policy SOPs. For guidance on specific questions, we want to refer you to your section leaders. Okay, I'm gonna try to move this out of the way because I think it's in the way. Let me put it on my screen. Perfect. I like to present my team, and my team is composed of our chief, Marcus James. My colleagues are Lisette Lima, Valerie McKinney, Samantha Montalvo, Angel Torres Morales, and Luis Torres. And our email address is visinate@va.gov. Please feel free to send us an email if you have questions regarding training. Now, I want to make a disclaimer here or make a note that this class, we developed it based on a request from someone in the field to address the specific topic of pharmacy residents, appointing them under a dual appointment during their residency. So since we covered the dual appointments a couple of weeks ago, we're going to refer you to how dual appointments are done, reviewing that training that we did a couple of weeks ago. But while we were putting this together, we have identified the need to also cover residents and how to bring them on board in more depth. And we think that we're going to go ahead and move forward and develop a class just for that, on how to bring on residents. We'll try to work on that for the next quarter, so just be on the lookout for that. However, in order to put this class into context, we are going to make some references to the resident appointments. Okay, so in order for the class to go smoothly and for the audience to understand the context of what we're trying to teach. Okay, with that said, so before we go forward, there's some important things about pharmacy residents that everyone should be aware of. The Pharmacy Residency program is the largest postdoctorate training program in the country. It offers trainees direct patient care learning, and this program is accredited through the American Society of Health Systems Pharmacists, the SHP. Now, disqualified pharmacists are very frequently and oftentimes they become VA clinical pharmacists after they successfully complete their residencies. So this, like I mentioned before in our disclaimer, this class is not gonna teach in per se about the residents and that how to appoint them, but we'll give some highlights of the residency program just to bring context to the conversation. As we mentioned, the pharmacy residents are under the health professions trainees. They usually, when the residents come on board, they start a year residency, and that is commonly known as PG1. But they also have the option to do a second year residency, and that's called the PGY2. These residencies are normally from the end of June until July. It's a whole year. And the resident doesn't have to do both residencies at the facility. They have to apply for these, they get matched, and then they are placed wherever they're placed. Okay. Now, the last thing about this, last two very important things about this is when they come to do a residency at the facility, they don't have a license yet because they just graduated. So usually they get their license between after July, after they start the residency, they start the process and they try to apply for their license, and anytime after July or whenever it's upon them to do, okay? The last point is that any information that you want to look for that has to do with students, with education, residencies, you can find it in the Office of Academic Affiliation, also known as the OAA. So any information, that's one of your main sources, okay? All right. Now that we have the foundation, we're just going to review quickly what we learned about dual appointments on the last class. And we know that these are found in VA Handbook 5005, Part 2, Chapter 3, Section 3B. We know that there could be more than one appointment at a VA at the same time. We know that hybrids in Title 38, the hybrids are your 7401s, parenthesis 3, which pharmacies fall under that, and personnel appointed under these two appointing authorities, 7405A and 7406. The 7406 are the residents, so we know that they can have a dual appointment based on the regulation. And the other part of the regulation addresses intermittents as temporary appointments, and those are under the 7405A parenthesis 1. Okay. And intermittent appointments cannot exceed a total of 1,820 hours or 7/8 per the year limit. Okay. Now, you can see the time. I want to make sure that okay. So the regulation that covers the intermittent appointment, you can find this in VA Handbook 5005, Part 2, Chapter 3, Paragraph 2, and we put it there that it's Paragraph 2 title is part-time and intermittent appointments under 38 USC 7405, parenthesis A, parenthesis 1, okay? An intermittent appointment shall be used when the need for services is of such a nature that is not possible or desirable to establish a regular and prearranged schedule. That's what your intermittent appointment is. And intermittent appointments may be made either on a time-limited basis or without time limit, depending on the needs of the facility. And at the bottom, the last bullet, that is the appointing authority. Okay, so I figured that it would be helpful to go ahead and put side by side these two types of appointments. Okay, so we have our residency. The residency is for a year. Like I mentioned before, it starts between June or the end of June, beginning of July. Our residents are usually appointed utilizing a TQCVL. A TQCVL is a training qualification and credential verification letter. Now, the program manager for pharmacy, what they do is that they go ahead and draw this letter, and they pretty much certify that the resident that's going to be under this program meets all the requirements for the residency. Okay. Now, it's a year from the time that it starts until it ends. They do get paid, they get a stipend, and that is set by the AA. It could be a first year residency or a second year residency, and these are time limited, okay? Now, a very, very important thing about residencies is that it's a coordination and collaboration between 3 departments, okay? So education is heavily involved with anything that has to do with education. So HR works in collaboration with them regarding what's needed, what the requirements are for or the HR, how to bring them on board. And then it comes alongside of that, the service pharmacy that has to bring these residents on board, and they have to make sure that they take the trainings that they need, and that make sure that they help us providing that TQCVL and ensuring that they meet all the requirements needed. So the residency is a collaboration between these three departments, okay? Now, the intermittent appointment is an appointment. And the appointment is to appoint them as a pharmacist. Okay, that's a position. Pharmacist GS12. The period is going to be during the residency, but it's very important to know that it can only be done after they obtain their license because they have to meet the basic requirements. It's processed as any new hire. You use the regular pay scale that is for pharmacists, and I honestly, if I'm not mistaken, they have an SSR, and it is a time limited appointment. Okay. So for the licensed pharmacist, okay, which is the intermittent appointment, which is what this class is mainly about. Like I mentioned, it's just like a regular hire. These are the qualification standards for a pharmacist. Okay. And there has to be approval to recruit. There needs to be an MSS request, functional statement, resumes, or CVs. The person must meet the basic requirements. You have to give them a TJO, a letter offering the job. There obviously a pay determination. As I mentioned, they fall under the regular pay for pharmacists, and they have to be clear from all onboarding requirements. And then you have to give them the firm offer, but you have to make sure, just like a new hire, that they meet everything before that firm offer is sent out or their start date, their EOD. I just wanted to highlight here that the basic requirements that the person needs to meet. Basic requirement is citizenship, education, regulation, license, physical, and be able to speak English proficiently. That's the basic requirements. But then the next step is to make sure that they meet the grade determination, okay? Which is for the GS12, they have to meet the experience, the education, and I'm not going to read it all of it, but you have to make sure that you go into the regulation and that they meet this. Don't automatically assume that they meet it because they are in a residency program. The managers, I honestly, and I did this for many years, I felt like they blindly signed the TQCVL. And I don't know if they verify everything that they're saying yes to, but we cannot take the word for that. We want to make sure that we do our part as HR. Okay. And these qualification standards, as they've been housed now in the Ochiko page, and I'll share that at the end as well. Now, to me, I did pharmacy residence for quite some time. And to me, the secret is in a couple of things, okay? We did go over the foundational components of this. We're going to try to put all this together now, okay? So we know that the residents, and I'm going to talk about the residency because I think it's important for the context of this class. So the residencies, the students are doing their doctorate. In March, they get matched to which facility they're going to go and do their residency. Okay, that happens in March of the year that they're going to do the residency. And they graduate around May, the majority of them, and they have to start their residency by the end of June, beginning of July. So that tells us that we have less than 2 months to bring them on board and do everything that we need, okay? In collaboration with education, pharmacy, and HR. And having done it before, 2 months might sound like it's time, it can be done, but most of the time, residents are probably out of state. You have to coordinate whatever. If physical is required, this has changed over the years. Some years they said they needed it, some years they said they didn't. So you have to look at what education has agreed or has put out as the policy, okay? But regardless, you're dealing with somebody that is out of state. You have to arrange all these arrangements. They are in the middle of doing their finals. They're dying to graduate and go on a vacation. And you have to make sure that you meet everything within that time frame before they start. And many of them are going to relocate, so they have to find apartments. So it's a complex type time frame for them. And we just know that it's you have to have a clear plan on how to do this and not try to pick it up in May. You have to plan ahead of time. Something that I used to do in March, I knew they were matched. At the end of March, I would contact the program manager and say, okay, let's talk about this. What's the plan? How many residents? So at least I would talk to education to find out what the consensus was for this year, and like that, have a plan. Okay. So we can do this appointment timely for the residency. That's residency. Okay. So the secret is in the collaboration. Okay, you must partner with education and pharmacy to make sure that we can make this work. Okay, now, how do we process the intermittent appointment? And that's what this class is about. How do we process this? Let's just take, for instance, somebody that is in their first year of residency. Now, I think I mentioned it briefly, or it was one of our questions, but managers sometimes think that this can be done right away because they're on board. We can just go ahead and just appoint them the next day, and that it can be done overnight. And that's incorrect. An intermittent appointment is a separate appointment. So you have to ensure that all requirements are met, okay? And this involves, if they meet the basic requirements, the onboarding requirements, fingerprints. I don't know if the fingerprints that they get for the residency as a student is the same as they get for being an intermittent pharmacist. You have to make sure that they go through vet pro, that's clear. So you got to make sure that all those requirements are met. Okay. Now, a good thing is that there is a reference job aid that I will provide you at the end. It's on your screen, 309, higher job aid, pharmacy residence, and dual appointments. It's very fortunate that we have that. It doesn't give you all the details, but it gives you the highlights of the things that are needed, okay? And in order to process an intermittent appointment, you need to obviously meet the requirements for recruitment. There needs to be a position number for the intermittent appointment. The position number cannot be the same as the one for the residency, okay? Because it's a separate position. There has to be an MSS request with everything that is needed. And like I mentioned, you want to reference this reference job aid, okay? Now, okay. I mentioned already that the PG1 or PG2, the PG1 is the first year. This means they've graduated with their doctorate, but normally they don't have their license yet when they come on board. The PG2 means that they are either finishing up their residency and are going to come on board as a resident in the second year. But we can almost always assume that they already have their license, okay? Because they usually get it in their first year. Now, something very important about residencies, and this is for HR Smart purposes, the residency has to be in record 0. That's the main record. That's the record that has the benefits and it's under their social security number. For their intermittent appointment, it has to be in record 1. Okay, that's very, very important. Now, since I mentioned that job aid, I thought it would be very helpful just to go and highlight some things that will be helpful for you and for you to go back and review when you're doing them. So the non-residency appointment, this is the intermittent appointment. Let's see what it says. Managers should initiate a separate update field position through MSS when they are authorized, right, to fill an intermittent vacancy on the organizational chart. So this has to be approved, right? They do not interface the request for a dual appointment. Basically, that's saying that we're going to process them as a non-competitive appointment, right? Is that how we still do the non-competitive? Somebody can tell me on the chat. And when we process them, we're going to process them as a concurrent higher UFC appointment. We got to use that tile, okay, to do the dual appointment, the intermittent appointment. I mentioned that already, that the residency has to be in record 0 because that's the one that provides residents with health insurance. Okay. Okay. So this is more for the position manager. I only wanted it to show it just to make sure that when you have the conversation with pharmacy, if they're not familiar, this section just lets us know that there has to be a job code. That position has to have its own. It cannot be just tied to the other one. On the screen here, it's not showing, but at the bottom, it's going to say also indicate that it's an intermittent position. So the manager has to do the work for the intermittent before they request to do the hire. Now, also, I just want to make sure that we show here that there is guidance for terminating the appointments of either the resident or the intermittent, okay? And it even gives you the NOA and it tells you what to do with record 0 and record 1. Okay. Now, very important to mention is that those employees not continuing VA employment, they need to be terminated. Okay. And just make sure that you use these NOAs under number 2, action 1, process at 355, termination expiration of appointment on record 0 to end the residency appointment. Okay. And if they are leaving, obviously not to stay in the federal government, then you process the resignation for employee record 1 for the intermittent. Okay. Okay. So this is just a screenshot of HR Smart, right? The concurrence tile. So if you're getting ready to bring this person on board, they met the requirements, they went through the onboarding, they are fit, they got clearance from everything. You set the date, their date is set, we're going to code them, okay? We're going to enter them in the system, and that is done under this tile, okay? You do use the same employee ID number because it's going to be under that same employee ID number, okay? But you enter them here. And then you want to create an assignment. You're going to see the current residency. You're going to verify the next employee record field says 1 for the intermittent appointment, okay? It has to say 1. And then you go ahead and you create it. And if you look further down, you're going to see in the red box that it's going to say additional to the concurrent appointment. And the recent code is also going to be additional, okay? The appointment is processed as a 171. And here is the same legal authority that we mentioned for the intermittent, on the intermittent slide, okay? So on the personal data, now this is very, very important, okay? And I say it, I'm going to say this because I went through it with one service at a point. So when they're assigned or they're brought on board as an intermittent, the system generates a pseudo number, okay? They take their social security number and the system generates another number, and you see it here under the box. It puts a 9 in front of it and then it generates a number, and that's how they get paid under the intermittent appointment. Now, I caution you not to, sometimes services may have a lot of information from HR and might think that they know the ins and outs. And I had it one time, the service, they were arguing, they were telling the residents to put a pseudo number in their paperwork. And I'm like, please don't do that. HR is not advising them to do that. They need to put their regular social security number, the pseudo number that is generated, that's done by the HR Smart system. We don't want to tell employees or potential employees to falsify documents. So if you ever hear them say that, yes, that's fine. They need to stay in their lane. The pseudo number is going to be generated by the system, an HR program. So I thought it would be good. This is just something that from my time doing the dual appointments for pharmacy residents. So as I mentioned before, in real time, I'm going to do it for this year. I know in March, they're going to get matched. In April, early April, end of March, early April, I'm going to talk to the service, to pharmacy. By May, we need to do tentative job offer, onboarding, cleared, firm offer. June, July, they're going to go ahead and start. And now, if they're going to enter an MSS request for the dual intermittent appointment, that can only happen after that pharmacist has their license. But just to put it in perspective, how I used to work with the services, they would give me the service that I used to work with was extremely, they were on top of it. They had a plan, it was clear. Sometimes I had to tell them, okay, let me do my part and guys can do your part, because they wanted it to do my part as well. But they were very organized, and I think that this was the key. Now, they gave me the name of the person. In the second column, you can see the pharmacy resident position number. And then they also had already the position number for the intermittent appointment. And they would tell me that that would be the intermittent appointment. But anyway, in any case, it's good to just go ahead and talk it out, have a plan, make it neat, and then identify those that are going to have an intermittent appointment ahead of time. Now, I thought it would be easy to do a scenario. We don't have the capability now as a regular training, but I'm still going to go ahead and put it out. If you guys can put it on the chat. I can't see the chat, but if my team can, let me know. So let's just say that we have a first-year residency. They're going to start June 30th. It's going to be until June 29th of the following year. The pharmacy submits an MSS request. They use the same position number as the residency for the intermittent appointment of the first year. The resident is working on getting their license. Can you go ahead and process this request? If you think that you can process it, you say yes. You say no. If you say no, why not? If you guys can tell me real quick, we don't have much time to do. We only have 10 more minutes, but I want to cover a couple more slides. In the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and point it out. So the fact that they are using the same position number as the residency, it's wrong. Remember, it's two separate appointments, okay? The residency appointment has a number, and the intermittent appointment has its own position number, so you can't process it. And also the fact that they are saying that they are working on getting their license, in order for you to appoint them under the GS-12, they have to have their license. Here's another scenario. We have John Smith. He completed the first-year residency at Northport VAMC. John will do a second-year residency at Miami. He has an active license. The pharmacy program at Miami has entered 2 MSS requests for the second-year residency, which is going to be from June 30th, 2026 to June 29, 2027. The dual intermittent appointment, they want it to be for the same period. Can you go ahead and process that appointment? If you think that the answer is yes, then it all depends if John Smith has met all the basic requirements, okay? And is cleared to do the job. If he does, then yes, you can do it because he has the active license, okay? As long as he meets all the requirements, they can be done because it's that second year. I thought it would be helpful just to take a look at it. This is somebody that I coded a little ways back, but I was just trying to show you how it looks once you code them. Obviously, it's an effective date. We know that it has the employee record is on number 1 for the intermittent appointment. The action is additional. It has a not to exceed date. In the part remarks, I entered that it was a dual appointment. The legal authority, we can see that is the 38 USC 7405 A1B for the intermittent appointment. So just a visual on how it would look. Angel, I don't know if you can launch the post test, and we may not have much time. We got like 8 minutes, but we'll give them 30 seconds. If we can launch it, great.
Well, poll is on. Everybody should be seeing it right now. Let's see. All right, we got one response. So yeah, it's live. Everybody, if you can, go ahead and answer the poll question for the post test. You should be seeing a window live in your up right now. So we got 11 responses. Previously, we got 16 responses. So if we can get to that, it will be great. So we can have a better way to compare it. We got 15 and a couple more, and we're good to go. We got 18. That's good. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
So we're going to close it. in 5 seconds. So everybody go ahead and get your answers in and it's good to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Angel. So let's see. The first question was a dual appointment must be at the same facility. The answer for that was false. It doesn't have to be at the same facility. It can be at other facilities. Now, the pharmacy resident can have a dual intermittent appointment during their residency, and that is true. We just covered that. And the pharmacy resident can be appointed during their residency as an intermittent without any onboarding requirements since they are already on board. And that is false. That's a misconception that many managers may have, but we just got to remind them that it's two separate appointments. Okay. In summary, we pharmacy residents fall under the health professions trainee, HPTs. Intermittent appointments may be made either on a time limited basis or without time limit. In HR Smart, the residency record is 0, and the intermittent appointment is a record 1 for a dual appointment. Ensure that all recruitment requirements are always met since an intermittent appointment is a separate appointment. If there are any questions, now is the time. We'll try to stop the presentation. I will provide you with the references. We have a reference sheet and I will put it on the chat for you guys to review it. If there's a question, I'm going to stop my presentation so I can. If somebody has a question, they can come off mute, and if I don't know the answer, I will come back with an answer to the whole group.
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
Hi, I did a dual appointment last pay period, and that's one thing I noticed is that when you go to that other tile, the concurrent tile, if you have to go ahead and put that appointment in, enter that in at that time, because if it times out, then it creates another screen. So it's like time sensitive. So you have to do it at that time.
Oh, okay. You don't want that. Yes. So yeah, that was always my thing. I always gather all my information first, had it on a separate document. I know it was extra work, but I could just sit there and just enter the information at one point. And that I didn't cover things for residents because, like I said, that's a separate class. I'll try to do that. But one thing to keep in mind with residents is you have to separate the time to do them, especially if you're in pharmacy, that usually they have between 6 and 8 residents. And the way it works is first year residents are finishing, let's just say in June, and then the next day you have to put the new set of residents that are coming in. Okay. So one of those free advice is you have to be very organized. If you do residents, you have to be detailed, ensure that you have the right name for the right PID, how to code that person, if they're going to stay in, if you have to extend their intermittent appointment, if you have to terminate the appointment. So there's a lot of, honestly, to me, it can be its own service just to do residents and a facility that has a lot of residents. So because it can be time consuming. So just take your time, have all the information ahead of time, and then just code it in one shot. Thank you for that. Thank you, Kimberly. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, we will share. I thank you very much. I have music for you, but obviously I can't put it on. And I will share the reference sheet. Let me see if I can just dump it in here real quick. If you can open the reference sheet, survey is there. I don't know if somebody has it real quick that can just dump it on the chat. Let me see if I can. Okay, here's the reference sheet. It has all of the references that we mentioned today. It also has our email and it has our survey. If you can take the survey, this will help us see what I'm missing, if I can improve our training. Thank you for your patience. We had some technical difficulties today. We did it. We try to just troubleshoot and just get the training to you. Usually we upload our trainings within a week or two. I'm not sure we're going to be able to upload this because sometimes when we share our screen, it doesn't work out. So we might need to re-record it. But in any case, we'll try to post it on our page. We advise you to go ahead and check out our HRD page. There you can find on-demand trainings that we have done throughout the year. Our colleague Angel sends out every week or every month. He sends out all the trainings that we have done in that month in a newsletter. So we advise you to take a look at that. And we want to thank you. Thank you for your time. I'll leave you here with a couple of quotes that I found. I hope they are something that helps you. Keep moving forward, and thank you very much. Have a great day.